The massive station hung in the darkness between stars like a metal flower with too many petals. Station Harmony was built for moments like this, when the galaxy's most powerful species needed neutral ground to settle their differences. Today, however, the differences seemed impossible to settle. Admiral Deho walked through the curved corridors with steady steps. His dark uniform bore no decorations except for simple rank pins. Behind him, diplomat Sujin carried a small briefcase. That held humanity's official response to the alien demands. Military strategist Young Sik followed last, his sharp eyes taking note of every security camera and guard position they passed. The three humans drew stares from the alien beings they encountered. Some species had never seen humans in person before today. A group of tall, blue-skinned traders whispered to each other as the delegation passed. Two security guards with 4 arms each watched the humans with obvious suspicion. "They think we're already beaten," Sujin said quietly as they walked. Young Sik smiled without humor. "Let them think that." The main conference chamber was enormous. 12 different alien species had sent their most important leaders to witness what they believed would be humanity's surrender. The room buzzed with clicking, chirping, and other alien languages as representatives talked among themselves. At the center of the room stood a raised platform with a circular table, 12 seats surrounded the table, each designed for a different alien body type. A single human-sized chair sat slightly apart from the others, positioned so that all the alien representatives could look down at whoever sat there. Deho noticed the arrangement immediately but said nothing. He took his assigned seat while Sujin and Young Sik stood behind him. The talking in the room slowly died away as the alien leaders took their places. The Vorthic Chancellor rose first. Krythex was tall and thin, with skin that looked like living crystal. When light hit him the right way, he sparkled like a diamond. His voice sounded like wind chimes when he spoke. "We are here because humanity has refused to accept reality." Krythex began. "Your species has expanded too far, too fast. You have taken resources that belong to others. You have built colonies and systems that were claimed long before humans learned to leave their home planet." The hegemon's representative stood next. Zaktar looked like a giant insect with 6 arms and compound eyes that reflected the room's lights. When he spoke, his voice buzzed like a swarm of angry bees. "The Hegemon Empire controls 47 star systems," Zaktar announced. "The Vorthic Confederation controls 31 systems. Our allies control hundreds more. Together, we command fleets that number in the thousands. Humanity has ... what? A few hundred ships scattered across a dozen colonies?" Other alien leaders nodded their agreement. A reptilian being with scales that shifted color spoke up from across the table. "The math is simple," the reptilian said. "You are outnumbered. 3 to 1. Your technology is adequate but not superior. Your colonies are too far apart to defend each other effectively. Surrender now, and your species can survive as our tributaries." Sujin felt her hands clench into fists. She had spent 20 years working to build peaceful relationships with these species. She had negotiated trade agreements, cultural exchanges, and scientific partnerships. Now they spoke about humanity like insects to be stepped on. Krythex activated a holographic display that showed the galaxy. Red dots marked alien-controlled systems. Blue dots showed human colonies. The blue dots looked very small and lonely among all that red. "Our terms are reasonable," the Chancellor continued. "First, all human colonies beyond your core 5 systems must be abandoned within 1 standard year. Second, your military fleet will be reduced to patrol ships only. No vessels larger than a frigate will be permitted. Third, humanity will pay tribute of raw materials and manufactured goods equal to 15% of your total production. Fourth," Zaktar added with a sound that might have been insect laughter, "all human expansion beyond your designated territory is permanently forbidden. You will ask permission before establishing any new settlements, even in your own systems." Young Sik wrote notes on his electronic pad as each demand was presented. His face showed no emotion, but his fingers moved quickly across the screen. To the aliens, it looked like he was recording surrender terms. In reality, he was noting the exact location of every alien ship, base, and colony the representatives mentioned. The demands continued for 2 hours. Humanity would give up their newest colonies. Human trade ships would carry alien observers. Human military academies would be monitored by alien inspectors. Human research into advanced weapons would be supervised by the coalition. Finally, Krythex returned to his seat. These terms are generous considering your position. We could simply take what we want by force, but we prefer civilized solutions. You have 1 hour to discuss our offer among yourselves. The alien representatives began talking among themselves again, their voices mixing into a buzz of different languages. Some laughed as they pointed toward the human delegation. Others made gestures that were probably insults in their cultures. Deho sat quietly during the entire presentation. He had not spoken a single word since entering the chamber. His dark eyes moved slowly around the room, studying each alien leader. Sujin noticed that he paid special attention to the military representatives, noting their uniforms and rank insignia. After exactly 1 hour, Krythex called for attention. "Have you reached a decision?" Admiral Deho stood up slowly. He was not particularly tall or imposing compared to most of the aliens in the room. His gray hair and lined face made him look like someone's grandfather rather than a military leader. When he spoke, his voice was quiet but clear. "We have considered your proposal carefully," Deho said. The room fell completely silent. Even the alien whispers stopped. "After full discussion among our delegation, humanity's answer is no." The silence stretched for several seconds. Then chaos erupted as alien voices rose in anger and surprise. "You cannot be serious," Zaktar buzzed furiously. "Do you not understand the forces arrayed against you?" "Perhaps the translation was incorrect," suggested a snake-like alien with too many eyes. "Surely they meant to accept." Krythex raised one crystalline hand for silence. "Are you certain of this decision? There will be no second chance for negotiation." Deho began packing his papers into his briefcase. Sujin and Young Sik did the same. "We are certain," the Admiral said simply. "Humanity rejects your terms." "Then you have chosen war," Krythex declared. "Our fleets will move against your colonies within the month. Your resistance will be brief and futile." The three humans walked toward the chamber exit. As they reached the door, Deho turned back to face the alien assembly. "You are mistaken about one thing," he said calmly. "We have not chosen war. You have chosen to make war upon us. There is a difference." The humans left the chamber without another word. Behind them, alien voices rose in excitement as leaders began planning their invasion of human space. As their shuttle departed station, Harmony, Young Sik activated his communication device and sent a short message across human space. The message contained only 5 words, but every human commander knew what they meant. Protocol 7, the stars remember. Throughout human space, receivers picked up the signal. On hidden bases and secret installations, humans began their preparations. The aliens thought they had witnessed humanity's defeat. Soon, they would learn how wrong they were. 3 months had passed since the humans walked out of the peace talks. The alien coalition expected panic, desperate messages, maybe even a quick surrender. Instead, they got nothing. Chancellor Krythex stood in his crystal palace on the Vorthak homeworld, staring at reports that made no sense. His intelligence officers had tried every method they knew to contact human leadership. Every message went unanswered. Trade communications that had flowed freely for decades simply stopped. "Perhaps they are having internal arguments," suggested his military advisor, a younger Vorthik named Velanara. "Their government might be split between those who want to fight and those who want to surrender." Krythex's crystalline features reflected the light as he turned toward her. "For 3 months? Even human politics cannot be that slow." On the other side of the galaxy, Hegemon Zaktar faced similar confusion. His compound eyes scanned through reports from his spy networks across human space. The information painted a strange picture that his military mind struggled to understand. "General Thekros," he buzzed to his chief military advisor, Explain these movement patterns to me again. The older insect pulled up a holographic display showing human ship movements. Over the past 12 weeks, blue dots moved in seemingly random patterns throughout human territory. Some ships disappeared entirely from tracking systems. Others appeared in places where no human settlements existed. It makes no tactical sense, Thekros admitted. If they were preparing for war, we would see fleet concentrations near their important colonies. If they were preparing to surrender, we would see ships moving toward their capital systems for protection. Instead, they seem to be wandering, Zakhtar observed. Ships moving to empty space, then vanishing from our sensors. The confusion spread throughout the alien coalition. Species that have fought humans in border skirmishes for years suddenly found those borders completely quiet. Human patrol ships that once challenged alien vessels simply disappeared. Trade routes that had carried human goods to alien markets fell silent. Dr. Velinar worked late in her laboratory on the Vorthak homeworld, trying to solve a different mystery. Her job was studying gravitational waves and space-time distortions. For the past month, her instruments had been detecting strange readings from deep space. The gravitational anomalies were small but consistent. They appeared in empty areas between star systems, lasted for a few days, then vanished. Her computer models suggested they might be caused by very large objects moving through hyperspace, but that was impossible. No known technology could move objects that massive through dimensional space. Probably just instrument errors, she told her assistant. Or maybe some natural phenomenon we haven't seen before, but the readings kept coming. Each week brought new detections from different areas of space, always in empty regions, always lasting just long enough to be noticed, then disappearing before detailed scans could be completed. Meanwhile, in the Hegemon's territory, General Thekros was discovering his own set of mysteries. Human merchant ships that had been regular visitors to Hegemon trade stations simply stopped coming. At first, he assumed this was part of the economic pressure from the failed peace talks, but when his ships went looking for these traders in human space, they found something unexpected. The trading posts and fuel stations that humans had built over decades of peaceful contact were still there. They were still operational, but they were empty. Where did the crews go? Thekros asked his intelligence officer. Unknown, sir. The stations respond to communication requests with automated messages. They say all personnel have been transferred to other assignments, but we cannot locate where those assignments might be. The same pattern repeated across dozens of human facilities throughout alien space. Mining operations, research stations, communication relays, fuel depots, all running on automatic systems, all staffed by machines instead of humans, hidden deep. In an asteroid field that had been carefully hollowed out over 30 years, Chief Engineer Hyun Woo monitored the reports from his spy networks. The alien confusion was exactly what he had hoped for. Every human civilian, every non-essential worker, every person who could not fight had been quietly evacuated from the frontier territories. The aliens saw empty stations and assumed economic collapse. They did not understand that humans had been planning this evacuation for decades. Every mining base, every trading post, every research facility had been built with hidden capabilities. Automatic systems that could run without human oversight. Defensive weapons disguised as industrial equipment. Communication networks that could operate in complete silence. Admiral So Young watched from her command ship hidden in the dark space. Between two gas giants, her fleet of 200 vessels waited in perfect silence, their engines cold, their communication systems shut down. They had been practicing this kind of hiding for 20 years. The aliens had superior numbers, but they could not fight what they could not find. Project Starfall was entering its most critical phase. Massive construction projects that had been disguised as routine mining operations for 3 decades were finally reaching completion. The aliens had watched humans dig deep into asteroids and assumed they were looking for valuable metals. They never suspected that humans were building something much more important. The stellar collectors were works of engineering that pushed the limits of human technology. Each one was the size of a small moon, designed to orbit close to a star and harvest its energy. The aliens had seen them being built but dismissed them as simple power generation for human colonies. They did not know that these collectors could do much more than generate electricity. In the right hands, with the right modifications, they could redirect a star's energy in ways that would terrify any spacefaring civilization. Dr. Ji Woo worked 18-hour days in a hidden laboratory built inside a captured asteroid. Her team of quantum engineers had spent 15 years developing the technology that would make Project Starfall possible. The math was incredibly complex, but the basic principle was simple enough. Every star created gravitational waves as it burned. Those waves could be detected, measured, and most importantly, influenced. With enough energy and the right equipment, humans could make stars behave in ways that nature never intended. The aliens thought humans were hiding because they were scared. In reality, humans were hiding because they were almost ready. Captain Taemin checked his chronometer and smiled. His ship was one of 50 vessels positioned near alien star systems, waiting for the final signal. Each ship carried equipment that looked like scientific instruments but was actually something much more dangerous. The quantum resonance devices had been placed carefully over many years. Human traders, diplomats, and scientists had visited alien systems and left behind small packages. Sometimes they were hidden inside gifts presented to alien leaders. Sometimes they were attached to the hulls of space stations during routine maintenance. Sometimes they were simply dropped into orbit around alien stars and forgotten. The aliens never noticed them because they were designed to look like space debris or broken equipment. But each device was actually a precisely calibrated tool that could influence gravitational fields on a massive scale. Young-Sik sat in the central command bunker buried deep beneath Earth's surface. Banks of computers showed him the position of every human ship, every hidden base, every secret weapon that humanity had prepared. The aliens thought they were hunting scattered refugees. Soon, they would discover they had been surrounded by an enemy they never saw coming. The silence from human space was not surrender. It was the quiet before the storm. And that storm was about to break in ways the galaxy had never seen before. The first sign that something was terribly wrong came from a star system called Kepler 442, the automated monitoring station in orbit around the system's fourth planet. Sent out an emergency alert that reached every major alien observatory within 6 hours. Kepler 442's star had dimmed by 12% in less than 24 hours. Dr. Villanara was pulled from her sleep by urgent messages flooding her communication device. As the Vorthic Confederation's top astrophysicist, she was the first person they called when something impossible happened in space, and this was definitely impossible. Stars don't just change their brightness overnight, she told her assistant as they rushed to the observatory. Not unless they're about to explode or collapse. But our long-range sensors show no signs of stellar instability. The data made no sense. Kepler 442 was a perfectly normal star, similar to the human sun. It had been burning steadily for billions of years. There was no reason for it to suddenly start producing less light, but the instruments did not lie. Something was blocking 12% of the star's light output. Something enormous. On the hegemon homeworld, similar alarms were ringing. Zakhtar's compound eyes studied the reports with growing unease. His military mind immediately jumped to the obvious question: if something could affect a star, what could it do to planets? General Thekros, he buzzed urgently, I want our best science team studying this immediately. And I want our fleets on high alert, if this is some kind of weapon. You think the humans did this? Thekros asked. Who else has been acting strangely for the past 3 months? Unknown to the aliens, Dr. Jiwoo was monitoring every second of the operation from her hidden command center. Massive displays showed her the status of stellar collector arrays positioned around dozens of stars throughout the galaxy. Kepler 442 was just the beginning. The stellar collectors looked like enormous metal flowers when fully deployed. Each one was 30 kilometers across, covered with millions of energy-gathering panels. They had been built in secret over 30 years, disguised as simple power generation projects for human colonies, but these collectors could do much more than generate electricity. They could redirect stellar energy into hyperspace conduits. They could alter the magnetic fields around stars. And most importantly, they could make stars appear to behave in ways that would terrify any civilization that depended on stable energy from space. Kepler 442 collector array is operating within normal parameters, reported one of Wu's technicians. Energy redirection is steady at 12%. Good, Wu replied. Bring the Zeta 7 array online next. Let's see how they react when it happens to a star in their own territory. The next alert came 18 hours later. This time it was a star in the heart of Vortex space. Their sun called Crystalline Prime, which provided energy to 3 major Vortex worlds, began showing unusual magnetic field fluctuations. Chancellor Krythex felt something he had never experienced before: fear. The reports from his scientists painted a picture that challenged everything he understood about the universe. The magnetic field variations are causing massive solar storms, Dr. Velinara explained to the Emergency Council meeting. Our satellites are being damaged by radiation. Our power grids are failing across 2 continents. And this is just the beginning. Can you stop it? Krythex asked. I don't even understand what's causing it. These magnetic field changes should be impossible without some kind of massive external influence. Something would have to be actively manipulating the star's behavior. The Chancellor's crystalline features darkened. The humans, they must have technology we don't know about. But even as he said it, he struggled to believe it. How could any species develop the ability to control stars? The energy requirements alone would be staggering. The engineering challenges would take centuries to solve. General Taemin watched from his command ship as the 3rd phase of the operation began. His vessel was hidden in the shadow of a gas giant, completely invisible to alien sensors. Around him, 50 other human ships waited for their orders. Each ship carried a single piece of equipment that looked innocent. Enough, a quantum resonance device no larger than a shuttlecraft. The aliens had seen similar devices on human ships. For years, always described as scientific instruments for studying gravitational waves. What the aliens didn't know was that these devices could influence gravitational fields on a massive scale. When activated near a star, they could create resonance patterns that would disrupt stellar magnetic fields. They could trigger solar storms. They could even cause temporary changes in a star's nuclear fusion rate. All ships report ready, came the voice of his communications officer. Begin Phase 3, Taemin ordered. All target stars simultaneously. Within minutes, stars throughout alien space began behaving strangely. Solar storms erupted across the hegemon's territory. Gravitational anomalies appeared near Vorthak colonies. Navigation systems that depended on stellar positioning started giving incorrect readings. The chaos was carefully calculated. Dr. Ji Wu and her team had spent years studying each target star, determining exactly how much disruption they could cause without actually destroying planets. The goal was not genocide. It was to cripple alien civilizations' ability to function across interstellar distances on the hegemon homeworld. Panic was spreading. General Thekros watched as reports flooded in from across their empire. Solar storms were disrupting communications between star systems. Navigation computers were failing as stars they had used for positioning for centuries suddenly appeared to be in the wrong places. How many of our stars are affected? Zaktar demanded. At least 40% of our core systems are reporting anomalies, Thekros replied. And the problems are getting worse. Some of our deep space monitoring stations have gone completely offline. The hegemon's compound eyes reflected the emergency lighting as power fluctuations hit their command center. This is not natural. This is an attack. But how? We've seen no human fleets, no human weapons, no signs of human presence in our territory. Unless they've been there all along, Thekros said quietly. The realization hit both leaders at the same time. The human traders who had visited their systems for decades, the human scientists who had studied their stars, the human diplomats who had exchanged gifts and cultural artifacts. They had all been placing weapons. Young Sikh monitored the operation from his underground command center on Earth. His displays showed the status of every stellar manipulation device, every hidden base, every secret weapon that humanity had deployed. The aliens were starting to understand, but it was already too late. "Sir," reported one of his technicians, "we're receiving communication attempts from the Vorthak government." "What do they want?" "They're asking for an immediate ceasefire. They say they're willing to discuss new peace terms." Young Sikh smiled grimly. "Tell them we're not interested in talking right now. We're too busy teaching them what happens when you threaten humanity." Across the galaxy, alien civilizations watched their carefully ordered universe fall apart. Stars that had burned steadily for billions of years were now unpredictable. Hyperspace routes that had been used for centuries were becoming unreliable. As gravitational fields shifted, the aliens had threatened humanity with superior numbers and firepower. But numbers meant nothing when you couldn't coordinate your fleets across star systems. Firepower was useless when your navigation systems couldn't tell you where your enemies were. "Admiral, So Young's hidden fleet finally received the signal they had been waiting for. Her 200 ships began moving out of their hiding places. In dark space, appearing like ghosts throughout alien territory, but these weren't merchant vessels or patrol ships. These were warships that the aliens had never seen before. "All ships begin Phase 4, So Young transmitted. Let's show them what we built while they thought we were hiding." The aliens were about to discover that humanity had not spent 30 years just learning to manipulate stars. They had also built the most advanced fleet in galactic history. And now that fleet was emerging from the shadows, supported by stars that obeyed human commands. The balance of power in the galaxy was shifting, and the aliens were finally beginning to understand that they had made a terrible mistake when they demanded humanity's surrender. The alien coalition's grand strategy fell apart in a single day. Admiral Hyjin stood on the bridge of the human battleship Dawn's Edge, watching as her fleet emerged from 30 years of hiding. 200 ships materialized from dark space around the Vorthak homeworld, their hulls gleaming with advanced armor that reflected the unstable light from the system's disrupted star. These were not the patrol ships and merchant vessels the aliens had cataloged in their intelligence reports. These were warships built in secret shipyards hidden in asteroid fields and rogue planets. Each vessel carried weapons that pushed the limits of human engineering, powered by energy drawn directly from controlled stars. "Admiral," reported her communications officer, "we're receiving panicked transmissions from the Vorthak Defense Fleet. They're requesting our intentions." "Tell them we're here to discuss the terms they offered us 3 months ago," Hyjin replied. "I'm sure they remember. Something about surrendering our colonies and paying tribute." Chancellor Krythex watched from his crystal palace as impossible ships appeared in his home system. His defensive fleets, which had seemed so powerful when threatening human colonies, now looked pathetically small. The human vessels were larger, more advanced, and worst of all, they had arrived without any warning from his early detection systems. How did they get so close without being detected? He demanded from his military advisor. Dr. Velinara studied the sensor readings with growing horror. "Their ships don't show up on our gravitational sensors. It's like they're not even there until they want to be seen. And look at these energy readings, they're drawing power directly from our star." The realization hit Krythex like a physical blow. The humans weren't just manipulating stellar energy output. They were stealing it, using his own sun to power. Their weapons. Engineer Kyungsu worked from his hidden facility buried deep in an uninhabited moon. His massive displays showed the status of stellar manipulation devices throughout alien space. Phase 4 of Project Starfall was the most dangerous part, not because it could destroy planets, but because it could destroy entire interstellar civilizations. "Begin destabilization sequence for sectors 7 through 12, he ordered his team. "Remember, we want disruption, not destruction. These species need to be able to surrender when this is over." Across alien space, stars began behaving in ways that defied every law of astrophysics the aliens thought they understood. Nuclear fusion rates fluctuated wildly, causing massive changes in energy output. Magnetic field reversals sent deadly radiation streaming toward inhabited planets. Gravitational waves pulsed in patterns that made hyperspace travel impossible, but the most terrifying part was the precision. The stellar disruptions were clearly artificial, clearly controlled. Stars didn't naturally coordinate their behavior across hundreds of light years. Someone was making this happen. General Thekros watched his empire crumble from his command center on the hegemon homeworld. Communication with their outer colonies had been cut off when the stars they used for navigation started giving false readings. Supply convoys were lost in hyperspace when gravitational anomalies made their jump calculations useless. "We have reports of human ships appearing throughout our territory," his intelligence officer buzzed frantically. "They're not attacking our colonies directly, but they're destroying our infrastructure. Orbital shipyards, communication relays, fuel depots, everything we need to coordinate our fleets." "How many ships do they have?" Zakhdar demanded. "We don't know. They appear, strike, and vanish before our forces can respond. Our sensors can't track them properly. It's like they're not made of normal matter." The truth was simpler but more terrifying. The human ships were made of normal matter, but they were using gravitational manipulation technology to bend space around themselves. They could become effectively invisible to most sensors, move through areas where hyperspace travel should be impossible, and draw energy from any nearby star. Captain Minho commanded the human flagship Stellar Sovereign as it approached the Coalition's main military base. The massive station had been built to coordinate attacks against human colonies. Now it was desperately trying to organize a defense against an enemy that seemed to be everywhere at once. "Sir," reported his tactical officer, "the station is requesting surrender negotiations." "Too late for that," Minho replied. "They had their chance to negotiate 3 months ago. Now they get to experience what they plan to do to us." The Stellar Sovereign fired a single shot. The weapon didn't use conventional explosives or energy beams. Instead, it created a localized gravitational anomaly that tore the station's structure apart from the inside. The alien crews had enough time to escape in life pods, but their military command center was completely destroyed. Similar scenes played out across the galaxy. Every major alien military installation found itself under attack by human forces that seemed to appear from nowhere. The alien superior numbers meant nothing when they couldn't coordinate their movements or supply their fleets. Dr. Velinara worked desperately in her laboratory, trying to find a way to counter the human technology. But every solution she proposed required an understanding of physics that her species simply didn't possess. "They're manipulating fundamental forces," she explained to Chancellor Krythex during an emergency communication. "Gravity, nuclear fusion, magnetic fields, they're treating them like tools. We might as well be trying to fight gods." "There must be something we can do," Krythex insisted, though his crystalline voice had lost its usual confidence. "Maybe. But it would take us decades to develop countermeasures, and that's assuming we can figure out how their technology works. Right now, we're like Stone Age hunters trying to fight an enemy with spacecraft." Young Sik monitored the battle reports from his command center deep beneath Earth's surface. The operation was proceeding exactly as planned. Alien resistance was crumbling not because humans were destroying their fleets, but because their fleets couldn't function in the stellar chaos humanity had created. "Status report," he requested from his tactical coordinator. "Vorthek colonies are requesting immediate ceasefire. Hegemon military forces are withdrawing to their core systems. The Reptilian Alliance has stopped all offensive operations and is asking for safe passage to neutral space." "And the Coalition's response to our message?" They single quotes re. "They're asking if we would consider returning to peace negotiations." Young Sik allowed himself a small smile. "Tell them we'll consider it after they've experienced a few more weeks of what they plan to do to us." The alien coalition had spent months planning their invasion of human space. They had calculated how long it would take to conquer each human colony, how many ships they would need, which human leaders to capture first. They had prepared for conventional warfare against an inferior enemy. They had not prepared for an enemy that could reach into the heart of their territory and turn their own stars against them. They had not prepared for human ships that could appear anywhere in the galaxy without warning. They had not prepared for weapons that could manipulate gravity itself. Most importantly, they had not prepared for the possibility that the peaceful, reasonable humans they had been trading with for decades were actually the most dangerous species in the galaxy. As reports of human victories flooded in from across alien space, one thing became clear to every alien leader. They had made a terrible mistake. When they assumed humanity's desire for peace was a sign of weakness, now they were learning the truth. Humans preferred peace because they were very, very good at war, and they had been preparing for this war for much longer than anyone had imagined. 6 months after the failed peace talks, the galaxy looked very different. The alien coalition that had once threatened humanity with overwhelming force now sent desperate messages begging for mercy. Their grand alliance had shattered like glass. Against humanity's hidden strength, Ambassador Yun Young walked through the corridors of Station Harmony with confident steps. She wore the same simple diplomatic uniform she had worn 6 months ago, but everything else had changed. The alien representatives who had once looked down at humanity's delegates now waited nervously for her arrival. Behind her walked Admiral Daeho and General Young-sik. They carried themselves with the quiet confidence of people who had planned for this moment for 30 years. The briefcase Young-sik carried contained humanity's new terms for peace. The aliens would not like what they read. The same conference chamber that had witnessed humanity's supposed defeat now hosted very different negotiations. The 12 alien species sat in the same seats, but their positions had changed dramatically. Where once they had spoken with arrogance and threats, now they whispered among themselves with fear and uncertainty. Chancellor Krythex looked nothing like the confident leader who had presented surrender terms 6 months ago. His crystalline skin had lost its sparkle, and his voice no longer rang with authority. The stellar disruptions in Vorthax space had crippled his civilization's ability to function across multiple star systems. Ambassador Yun Young, he said carefully, we are grateful that humanity has agreed to resume negotiations. Perhaps we can find a peaceful solution that benefits everyone. Yun Young took her seat at the head of the table. The chair that had once been positioned lower than the alien seats was now raised higher than all the others. The message was clear. The balance of power had shifted completely. 6 months ago, you demanded our surrender, she began. You threatened to invade our colonies, destroy our fleets, and reduce humanity to tributary status. Today you sit in the ruins of your own empires, begging us to restore normal stellar function to your space. Zakhtar's compound eyes reflected the chamber's lights as he leaned forward desperately. We acknowledge that perhaps our previous terms were too harsh. Surely we can reach a compromise that allows all our species to coexist peacefully. Compromise? Young-sik asked quietly. Like the compromise you offered when you demanded we abandon our colonies? Or the compromise where you wanted to monitor our military academies? The alien representatives shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Several species that had been eager to join the coalition 6 months ago were now conspicuously absent. Their governments had collapsed when stellar disruptions made it impossible to govern. Planets across multiple star systems. EU Unyoung activated a holographic display that showed the current state of the galaxy. The red dots that had once marked alien-controlled territory were now scattered and dim. Many showed the flickering lights that indicated systems cut off from their governments by stellar chaos. Let me explain your current situation, she said calmly. 40% of your star systems are experiencing ongoing stellar instability. Your hyperspace navigation networks have been rendered unreliable. Your military fleets cannot coordinate across interstellar distances. Your trade routes have collapsed. Dr. Velinara spoke up from the Vorthak delegation, her voice barely above a whisper. Can you restore normal stellar function to our systems? Of course we can, Yun-Young replied. The question is whether we will. Dr. Seung-ho monitored the negotiations from his hidden laboratory while simultaneously overseeing the gradual restoration of stellar stability in selected alien systems. The process was delicate and time-consuming, requiring precise adjustments to quantum resonance fields around each affected star. Begin restoration sequence for the Tritonian system, he instructed his team. Let them see that we can fix what we've disrupted. The Tritonian system belonged to a smaller alien species that had withdrawn from the coalition after 2 weeks of stellar chaos. Within hours of Seung-ho's intervention, their star returned to normal behavior. Their navigation system started working again. Their power grid stabilized. The message reached the negotiations within minutes. Humanity could restore stellar function, but only for species that cooperated. Our terms are simple, Yun-Young continued. First, complete withdrawal of all alien military forces from systems claimed by humanity. This includes a buffer zone of 50 light-years around our colonies. The alien representatives whispered frantically among themselves. 50 light-years would place vast areas of space under human control, including several systems they had considered their own territory. Second, reparations equal to the cost of our defensive preparations. You forced us to militarize by threatening our colonies. You will pay for the resources we spent protecting ourselves from your aggression. Krythex's crystalline features dimmed. The amount could bankrupt our civilizations? You should have considered that before threatening us, Young-Sik replied, without sympathy. Third, Yun-Young continued, recognition of humanity's sovereignty over all stellar engineering projects. Any species that interferes with human stellar manipulation technology will be considered to have committed an act of war. This was the most important term, though the aliens didn't fully understand it yet. Humanity was claiming the right to manipulate any star in the galaxy. It meant that human technology could reach into the heart of any alien system at any time. Fourth, establishment of human monitoring stations in major alien systems. These stations will ensure compliance with treaty terms and provide early warning of any military buildups directed against humanity. The monitoring stations would be much more than observation posts. Each one would carry quantum resonance devices capable of destabilizing local stars if activated. The aliens would live under the permanent threat of stellar disruption if they ever again considered attacking humanity. And finally, Yun-Young said, all future expansion by any signatory species must be approved by the human colonial authority. We will decide who gets to settle where in this galaxy. The silence in the chamber was deafening. The aliens had gone from demanding humanity's surrender to accepting human dominance over galactic civilization. But they had no choice. Their alternatives were continued stellar chaos and the eventual collapse of their interstellar civilizations. Admiral Daeho watched the alien faces as they processed humanity's terms. These were the same beings who had laughed 6 months ago when humans walked out of peace talks. They had assumed humanity was too weak to resist their demands. They had been wrong about everything. Humanity wasn't weak. They were patient. They hadn't been hiding from the aliens. They had been preparing. Most importantly, they hadn't wanted peace because they feared war. They had wanted peace because they were very good at war. One by one, the alien representatives agreed to humanity's terms. They signed documents that effectively placed their civilizations under human oversight. They accepted monitoring stations that could destroy their systems if they stepped out of line. As the negotiations concluded, Captain Bioram received new orders aboard her patrol ship near the former hegemon border. Her vessel now flew through space that had once been claimed by aliens who threatened human merchants. Those same aliens now requested permission to travel through what they had once considered their own territory. Captain, reported her communications officer, we're receiving a transit request from a hegemon trade convoy. They're asking permission to cross human space to reach their colony on the far side. Bioram smiled as she remembered the reports of hegemon ships threatening human traders just months ago. Grant them permission. but remind them that any deviation from their approved route will be considered a hostile act. The galaxy had a new order now. Humanity sat at its center, not because they had conquered through brute force, but because they had demonstrated power beyond anything the other species could comprehend. They controlled the very stars themselves. The aliens had learned a lesson that would echo through galactic history: never mistake a preference for peace as inability to wage war, and never threaten a species that thinks in terms of stellar engineering rather than simple military force. The stars themselves had become humanity's guardians, and the galaxy trembled at the realization that humans didn't just live among the stars, they commanded them.